The glass left her hand before anyone could react. Ice and vodka slammed into Marcus Thorne's face as gasps ripped through the first-class cabin. For a split second, no one breathed. Cassandra Reed stood trembling with triumph, her lips curled in disgust. "That's where trash belongs," she sneered. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't stand. He calmly reached for a napkin, wiped the liquid from his eyes, and looked straight at her. What Cassandra didn't know, what made this moment irreversible, was that the quiet man she had just humiliated wasn't a fellow passenger. He was the founder of the airline conducting an undercover audit, and with 6 calm words, her career reputation and entire future were about to collapse in real time. Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, was a therming hive of humanity, a place where timelines converged and frayed. Marcus Thorne navigated the sleek private lounge of Astrolux Airlines, not with the air of an owner, but with the quiet observation of a man looking for flaws in his own creation. At 48, Marcus was the founder and CEO of Astrolux, an airline he had built from the ashes of a bankrupt regional carrier. He was a self-made billionaire. But today, he looked like anything but. Dressed in dark jeans, a simple grey polo shirt, and a worn leather jacket, he could have been any middle management consultant. His face etched with laugh lines, but currently set in a pensive mask, gave away nothing of the power he wielded. This was his quarterly undercover boss routine, a ritual he refused to delegate. He needed to see the passenger experience raw and unfiltered. He was booked on Flight 7202 LAX to JFK in Seat 2B business class. He watched the gate agent, a young woman named Sophie, handled the pre-boarding chaos with a strained smile. That's when he first saw her. Her name, he would soon learn, was Cassandra Reed. She was a whirlwind of expensive perfume, clicking heels, and vocal displeasure. She was immaculate in a cream-colored pantsuit, her blonde hair pulled into a severe ponytail. She was on her phone, pacing aggressively near the priority boarding lane. "I don't care what the system says, Derek." She barked into her phone. "You tell Harrison and Croft that if they don't secure the Peninsula suite, the entire deal is off. I am not staying at a Marriott. I am not that kind of consultant." She snapped her phone shut and marched to the desk, cutting in front of an elderly couple. "Excuse me," she said to Sophie, her voice dripping with condensation. "Cassandra Reed 2D. "I trust my upgrade to first has been processed," Sophie typed. "Yes, Miss Reed, I see you're... Oh, I'm sorry. You're confirmed in business class 2D. First class is fully booked." Cassandra's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. My status is platinum executive. I am always in first." "Check again." "Mom, I have checked. Seat 2D is a premium aisle seat in our flagship business cabin." "This is unacceptable," Cassandra seethed. "This airline is a joke." Marcus watched, making a mental note. The agent was being professional. The passenger was being unreasonable. Priority boarding for Flight 722 to New York will now begin. Sophie announced, her voice trembling slightly. Marcus joined the line. Cassandra, still fuming, pushed her roller bag directly in front of him, clipping his ankle. "Watch where you're going," she snapped, glancing back at him. Her eyes swept over his polo shirt and jeans with open disdain. Marcus merely nodded. "My apologies." His lack of reaction seemed to incense her. As she scanned her boarding pass, she looked back at Marcus, then leaned towards Sophie. "You really let anyone in the priority line these days, don't you? It's losing all its prestige." Sophie looked mortified. "He's in business class, Mom." Right." Cassandra scoffed loud enough for the entire line to hear. "I'm sure he is." Marcus said nothing. He handed his own boarding pass to Sophie, gave her a small, reassuring smile, and walked down the jet bridge. He could feel Cassandra's eyes on his back, a prickling sensation of pure, unadulterated judgment. He settled into 2B. The Astrolux business cabin was his pride. Graphite-coloured pods, ambient lighting, and lay-flat seats. He was testing this specific configuration. Across the aisle in 2D, Cassandra was already making her presence known. "This is not champagne," she said, waving away the pre-departure flute offered by the flight attendant Chloe. Chloe looked barely 20, her name tag new. "It's a sparkling Proco, Mom," Chloe said nervously. "We serve the vintage Dom Perignon after takeoff. Fine, just take it." Cassandra snapped, already wiping down her entire pod with antibacterial wipes, her movements sharp and disgusted. She shot a look across the aisle at Marcus, who was simply stowing his leather satchel. She huffed, popped in a pair of AirPods and turned her face to the window. The storm was building. Marcus sighed, pulled out his phone and began typing notes. Passenger 2DC read aggressive. Toward ground staff and cabin crew monitor for escalation. He had no idea how quickly that escalation would come. The Airbus A321neo climbed gracefully out of the smoggy Los Angeles basin, banking east over the desert. As the seatbelt sign chimed off, the cabin crew began their service. Marcus watched Chloe, the young flight attendant, with a critical but sympathetic eye. She was green clearly, but she was trying. She was polite. She smiled, and her uniform was immaculate. Cassandra, however, had seemingly designated Chloe as her personal tormentor. "Is the Wi-Fi always this slow?" Cassandra demanded, holding up her phone. "I have a presentation to finish. I can't even download a 20-megabyte file." "I'm very sorry, Mom," Chloe said, clasping her hands. "We're over a rural area, so the satellite connection can be spotty. It should improve as I don't want excuses. I want it fixed, or I want it comped. This is ridiculous. I paid for this." "Of course, Mom. I will see if I can reset the router for this section," Chloe murmured, already looking defeated. Marcus observed the interaction, his fingers tapping silently on his phone screen. Passenger 2D creating hostile environment for crew. FA Chloe handling with professionalism, but needs support. Purser should intervene. Cassandra then turned her attention to the passenger next to her. A man in a suit who was clearly trying to sleep. "It's just amazing, isn't it?" she said, her voice a stage whisper designed to carry. The man grunted, pulling his eye mask down. She wasn't deterred. She looked across the aisle directly at Marcus, who was reviewing a PDF of fuel expenditure reports. "It's just flying used to be an event," she continued, her voice louder. "It used to be exclusive. People dressed up. Now they just let any riff-raff into the premium cabins. It's a real shame." Marcus didn't look up. He knew she was talking about him. He had faced this his entire life. The subtle and not so subtle suggestions that he didn't belong. When he was a scholarship kid at Stanford, when he was the only black intern at a Wall Street firm, and now as the CEO of his own company. The clothes didn't matter. The car didn't matter. To people like Cassandra, his skin color was a uniform that permanently marked him as less than. He refused to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. He simply highlighted a line in his report. This, it turned out, was the worst thing he could have done. His calm was a spark to her gasoline. An hour into the flight during the meal service, the tension spiked. Chloe was pushing the heavy cart down the aisle. "Mr. Thorne," she asked, stopping at his seat, "for your meal we have the seared salmon or the truffle pasta." "The salmon sounds great, Chloe. Thank you. And just a bottle of still water, please." Right away, she smiled, relieved by his simple politeness. Before she could even turn, Cassandra's hand shot out. Excuse me. I've been waiting for my vodka soda for 10 minutes and he gets served first." Unbelievable. "I'm so sorry, Miss Reed." Chloe stammered, her face flushing. "I was just taking his order. I'm coming right to you." "No, you'll come to me now. I am the platinum member. I am the priority. Can't you see I'm working?" She gestured to her blank laptop screen. "Mom, please," Marcus said, his voice quiet but firm. "She's just doing her job." It was as if he had slapped her. Cassandra's head whipped around. Her blue eyes were glacial. "Did you speak to me?" she hissed. "I just said she's doing her job. There's no need to be rude," Marcus said, meeting her gaze. "You don't get to tell me what to do," she spat. "People like you are always so demanding, aren't you? Expecting everything handed to you. You probably got this seat with some kind of diversity voucher or handout." The words hung in the pressurized air. The cabin went quiet. The man next to Cassandra peeked out from under his eye mask. An older woman in the row behind Brenda gasped audibly. Chloe looked like she was about to cry. "Mum, that is completely inappropriate." "Oh, stay out of it, sweetie." Cassandra sneered at Chloe. "You're just the help. Get me my drink and get me another one for the wait." Ms. Reed Marcus said, his voice losing its warmth. "You are causing a disturbance. I suggest you lower your voice." "Or what?" she laughed. A short, ugly sound. "What are you going to do about it? Are you going to call your gang? You're in my world now, buddy. And in my world, you are nothing." Marcus looked at her, a profound sadness mixing with a cold, rising anger. He had hoped the flight would be a simple audit. Now it was becoming a human resources incident at $35,000. He made a decision. He wouldn't engage. He would let her dig her own grave. He simply turned back to Chloe. "Chloe, you can skip my meal for now. Please go and find the purser. I think he needs to be aware of this situation." "Aye, okay, Mr. Thorne," she whispered, and she practically fled, pushing the cart backward up the aisle. Cassandra watched her go, a smirk of triumph on her face. She looked back at Marcus. "See, that's how it's done. You show them who's boss." She then pulled out her phone and started texting furiously, a manic energy radiating from her. Marcus knew this wasn't over. It was just the horrifying prelude. For the next 20 minutes, an icy silence held sway over the front of the cabin. The purser, a tall, unflappable man named David, had come by. He had spoken to Cassandra in a low, firm tone. "Ms. Reed, I understand you're upset, but we have a zero-tolerance policy for abusive language toward our crew or other passengers. I need your assurance this will not continue." Cassandra had waved him off. Fine. Just tell your girl to be faster with the drinks. And I want that Wi-Fi fee waived. Now go away. I'm trying to work." David had shared a look with Marcus, a look of pure exhaustion, before nodding and retreating. Marcus knew David was following de-escalation protocol. Issue a warning, disengage, and monitor. But Cassandra wasn't de-escalating. She was stewing. She had her vodka soda a double by the look of it, and she was draining it fast. She was also texting, and from the snippets of her one-sided whispered conversation, Marcus could piece together that her life on the ground wasn't as perfect as her pantsuit. "I don't care if the client is wavering, Derek," he said. "What, that's a lie. I secured the keynote. No, you call him back, and you tell him, if I lose this account, it's your fault." She was failing. She was under pressure, and she was looking for an outlet. She was a predator scanning for the weakest target. And in her twisted worldview, the weakest target was the black man in 2B who had dared to challenge her. She signaled Chloe, who approached with visible trepidation. "Another one," Cassandra demanded, rattling the ice in her empty glass. "Mum, are you sure the captain will be starting our initial descent into New York soon? Did I ask you for the weather report? I asked you for a drink?" "Vodka soda." Now Chloe looked toward the galley, then at Marcus, her eyes pleading. Marcus gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of his head. "Don't." Chloe took a breath. "Mum, I'm afraid I can't serve you any more alcohol on this flight." The silence that followed was absolute. Cassandra's face, which had been flushed with anger, went pale. "What did you say?" It's per policy, Mum. I believe you've had enough." You little," Cassandra hissed, her voice low and venomous. "You think you can cut me off? Do you have any idea who I am? Mom, please, You're just an over-glorified waitress, a child in a costume. You will get me my drink, or I will have your job. It's that simple." Brenda, the older woman from the row behind, leaned forward. "Oh, for heaven's sake. Leave the poor girl alone. You've been a terror since we left LA. You're a bully," Cassandra snapped. It was like a wire breaking. Her head whipped around to Brenda, then back to Marcus, as if he was the ringleader of this conspiracy against her. "You," she shrieked, pointing at Marcus. "This is your fault. You and your attitude coming in here thinking you own the place." "You think you're better than me," Marcus finally spoke. His voice calm and level, a stark contrast to her hysteria. Mom, no one thinks that. We just want a peaceful flight. You've been asked to stop. Please just don't you dare talk down to me, she screamed. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. You sit there so smug, so quiet. Her phone buzzed on her tray table, a new text. She glanced at it, her face contorted in a mask of pure fury. It was clearly the final straw, the bad news she had been dreading. No. She suddenly yelled a primal scream of frustration. And then in one swift, violent motion, she acted. Chloe had just placed a fresh glass of soda water. Not vodka, just soda on her tray. Cassandra grabbed it. She unbuckled her seatbelt, rose halfway out of her seat, and hurled the entire contents of the glass directly at Marcus. The impact was a shock. Ice cubes struck his forehead and chest. The cold, carbonated water drenched his face, his hair, his polo shirt, and his open laptop. The cabin erupted in gasps. "Oh my God," Brenda yelled. Chloe screamed. "No." Cassandra stood there, panting, her chest heaving. A vicious, triumphant smile spread across her face as she watched the water drip from Marcus's chin. "That's where trash like you belongs," she sneered. The plane was deathly quiet. All eyes were on Marcus Thorne. He sat completely soaked for a long second. He didn't move. He didn't wipe his face. He just stared. Then, very slowly, he closed his laptop. He reached for a napkin from his tray table and deliberately, calmly wiped the water from his eyes. He looked at the ice cubes on his lap. He looked at Chloe, who was frozen in horror. Then he turned his head and locked eyes with Cassandra Reed. Her triumphant smile wavered just a fraction. There was no fear in his eyes, no anger, just a terrifying, profound, and absolute finality. The silence in the cabin was so thick, it was suffocating. Every passenger in the front section was rigid, their attention locked on the drama in row 2. Cassandra's smirk remained, but it had become brittle, a porcelain mask over the first flicker of uncertainty. She had expected him to yell, to cower, to call for the flight attendant. He did none of those things. Marcus Thorne, CEO of Astrolux Airlines, sat drenched in her soda water. He calmly placed his ruined laptop in his satchel. He looked at the horrified flight attendant, Chloe, and his voice was suddenly startlingly different. The polite, quiet passenger was gone. In his place was a man who commanded billion-dollar boardrooms. "Chloe," he said, and his voice cut through the silence, not loud, but carrying an unmistakable weight of authority. "It's all right. You handled that perfectly." Chloe just stared, tears welling. "Mr. Thorne, I'm so... It's not your fault," he said, cutting her off gently. He then turned his gaze back to Cassandra, who was slowly, uncertainly sinking back into her seat. "Chloe," Marcus continued, never breaking eye contact with his assailant, "please go to the cockpit and notify Captain Robert Miller that we have a level 2 passenger disturbance. The passenger in 2D has committed assault on another passenger. Have him contact JFK Ground Control immediately. We will require Port Authority police to meet the aircraft at the gate." Chloe's jaw dropped. "Sir." Cassandra let out a sharp, derisive laugh. You're giving orders. Oh, this is rich. You're going to be the one arrested buddy. Assaulting a woman. Assaulting. Brenda, the older passenger, suddenly unbuckled her own belt. "I saw the whole thing. We all saw it. You racially abused that man, and then you threw your drink on him. I'm a witness." "Shut up, you old hag," Cassandra shrieked. She turned back to Marcus, her confidence returning. "You can't do anything to me. You're a nobody. I'm a platinum executive member. They will listen to me." Marcus let the silence stretch. He looked at her, and for the first time, a small, cold smile touched his lips. "That," he said, "is where you are wrong." He locked eyes with her. The entire cabin leaned in. "Mom, my name is Marcus Thorne." He paused, letting the name hang in the air. It meant nothing to her. She rolled her eyes. "And am I supposed to be impressed? Are you a rapper?" His smile vanished. "I am the founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Astrolux Airlines. I own this company. I own this plane. And you," he said, his voice dropping to a glacial whisper, The biggest mistake I've seen on one of my aircraft in 10 years. The freeze, it was instantaneous. It wasn't a slow drain. It was as if someone had pulled a plug. The blood vanished from Cassandra's face. Her sneer didn't just fade, it collapsed. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes wide with a sudden dawning terror darted from Marcus's soaked shirt to his impossibly calm, hard face. "What?" she stammered. "What did you say?" "You're lying," she whispered, her voice cracking. You're a janitor. You're a baggage handler lying." Marcus didn't even look at her. He was already focused on Chloe, who was standing stunned by the galley. "Chloe, tell the captain, my audit code is 901 Alpha. He will understand the priority. Please get me a spare blanket from the first-class closet and a bottle of water, and alert David the purser. He will handle Ms. Reed until we land." Mr. Thorne, Cassandra stammered, her hands visibly shaking. It was a joke, a misunderstanding." Marcus turned his head, his gaze so cold it seemed to physically push her back into her seat. "You called me trash, Ms. Reed. You assaulted me, and you did it in front of my crew and my customers. There is no misunderstanding. You are a racist and a criminal, and your time on my airline is over. No, please." David the purser suddenly appeared. He had heard the commotion and seen Chloe running to the cockpit. He saw Marcus drenched. His eyes went wide. Unlike Cassandra, he knew the name and he recognized the face from the corporate newsletter. Mr. Thorne David gasped. "What on earth happened?" "This passenger, Ms. Reed, assaulted me," Marcus said flatly. "She is to be considered a security threat. She's not to be served anything else, and she is not to leave her seat. The police will meet us at the gate. Is that clear, David?" A consummate professional snapped into action. "Crystal clear, sir." He turned to Cassandra. His warm customer service demeanor was gone, replaced by a steel mask. "M. Reed, I am the lead flight attendant. By order of the captain and federal air regulations, you are to remain in your seat with your seat belt fastened. Do not speak to any other passenger. Do not speak to the crew. If you violate these instructions, we will be forced to restrain you. Do you understand me?" Cassandra Reed was trapped. The entire cabin was staring at her. The man she had abused, humiliated, and assaulted owned the airline. She tried one last desperate tactic. Tears. He threatened me," she wailed, her voice high and thin. "I was scared. He was menacing me." Brenda's voice cut through the cabin like a knife. "That is the biggest load of garbage I have ever heard. I have my phone right here. It's been recording since you called him a diversity voucher. The whole cabin heard you. You are a disgusting person." Cassandra's wail died in her throat. Recorded. It was recorded. She shrank into her seat, her face ashen. She was no longer a high-powered consultant. She was just a woman soaked in her own malice on a plane that had just become her personal prison. Marcus took the blanket from a trembling Chloe. "Thank you, Chloe. You did a good job. Go help David." He spent the remaining 45 minutes of the flight in silence, staring out the window, the damp blanket over his shoulders. But he wasn't thinking about the cold or the humiliation. He was thinking about the phone call he was going to make as soon as they landed. The descent into New York was the longest 45 minutes of Cassandra Reed's life. The atmosphere in the business class cabin was thick with a toxic mixture of shame, pity, and simmering rage. Every passenger was acutely aware of what had happened. They stole glances at Cassandra, who sat ramrod straight, her face a blotchy mask of terror. She was visibly vibrating, her hands clenched so tightly in her lap, her knuckles were white. She had gone from predator to prey in the span of a single sentence. Marcus, for his part, projected an aura of absolute calm. He had accepted a fresh shirt, a standard-issue navy blue Astrolux polo from David the purser, changing in the lavatory. When he returned, he looked less like a passenger and more like a commander who had just taken charge of a compromised vessel. He sat down, buckled his belt, and didn't spare Cassandra another glance. This more than anything seemed to unravel her. His silence was her undoing. She needed to talk, to negotiate, to spin, to threaten. It was how she had built her career. But how do you negotiate with a man you just physically assaulted? A man who holds your entire fate in his hands. She tried. "Mr. Thorne," she whispered across the aisle. Marcus didn't turn. He continued looking out the window as the suburbs of New Jersey rushed by below. "Mr. Thorne, please." Her voice was strained, desperate. I'm not myself today. My company, I'm under a lot of pressure. I just lost a huge account. I'm not a racist. I have friends who are." Marcus slowly turned his head. His eyes were flat, devoid of emotion. "Do you think that matters, Ms. Reed?" he asked, his voice low. Yes, it matters. It was a mistake. A momentary lapse. A terrible mistake. You have made several mistakes," Marcus said, ticking them off on his fingers. "You were abusive to my gate agent. You were abusive to my cabin crew. You made repeated, explicitly racist comments. And then you physically assaulted me. That's not a lapse. That's a pattern of behavior. I'll pay for your dry cleaning." She blurted out the offer so pathetic, it was almost comical. And I'll write a letter of apology to you, to the flight attendant. You'll be writing your apology to the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey," Marcus said, "and to your employer, because I can assure you they will be notified." This hit her like a physical blow. My employer. No, you can't. It has nothing to do with them. It was a personal matter. You made it a corporate matter when you assaulted the CIO of a company you were flying with. Marcus replied, "You are a liability. I have a duty to my crew and my passengers to ensure you are never a threat on one of my aircraft again." No, please." She was openly sobbing now, fat tears rolling down her cheeks, ruining her expensive makeup. "Please, I'll lose my job. I'll lose everything." "You should have thought of that," Marcus said, "before you decided to put trash in its place." He turned back to the window. The conversation was over. The wheels touched down at JFK with a heavy thud. The plane taxied for what felt like an eternity. Cassandra's quiet, gasping sobs filling the cabin. The other passengers pointedly looked away, their discomfort palpable. Finally, the plane docked at the gate. The familiar ding of the seatbelt sign turning off sounded, but Captain Miller's voice immediately came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying with Astrolux. We have now arrived at John F. Kennedy International Airport. Due to a security matter, we ask that all passengers remain in your seats. I repeat, all passengers must remain seated until Port Authority officers have boarded the aircraft. Thank you for your cooperation." A ripple of groans went through the economy cabin, but in business class, everyone knew why. Cassandra was hyperventilating. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Marcus unbuckled his seatbelt. He retrieved his leather satchel from the overhead bin, and stood in the aisle, blocking her exit. The main cabin door opened. A moment later, 2 large Port Authority police officers, their faces grim, boarded the plane. They walked directly to David, the purser, who pointed not at Marcus, at Cassandra. "Mom," the first officer said, his voice booming in the small space. "Are you Cassandra Reed?" She could only nod, tears streaming. "Please gather your personal belongings. You need to come with us." The walk of shame was a silent movie of humiliation. The 2 officers stood waiting as Cassandra, her hands shaking so violently she could barely zip her purse, gathered her things. She fumbled with her roller bag, and one of the officers, with a sigh of impatience, took it from her. "Let's go, Mom." Every eye in the cabin was on her. The passengers in economy, who had only heard rumors, and the captain's announcement, craned their necks, phones held half-hidden recording. They saw a woman in a rumpled, expensive pants, suit, her face a mess of tears and mascara, being led by police. As she reached the aisle, she had to pass Marcus Thorne. She stopped. Her face for a second morphed from terror back to its native state. Rage, the last flicker of a dying star. "You'll pay for this," she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper. I'm a partner at Harrison and Croft. I have lawyers. I will sue you." I will sue you and this whole stupid airline for what you've done to me. You boy." Marcus didn't even flinch at the last desperate slur. He simply looked at her, then at the officers. "She seems to be threatening me, officers, and my company." The first officer grabbed her arm. "Mom, you are officially being detained for assault. You have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you start using it now. Move." They physically moved her. One officer in front, one behind, down the jet bridge. Marcus watched her go until she was out of sight. The cabin, which had been holding its collective breath, exhaled. Brenda, the older woman, touched his arm as she passed. "I've never seen anything like it. You handled that with incredible grace, young man. I'm just so sorry you had to go through it." "Thank you, Mom," Marcus said. "I appreciate you speaking up. My crew will take your statement." "Gladly," she said, patting his arm. Marcus was the last passenger to deplane. As he stepped out onto the jet bridge, a woman in a sharp Astrolux executive suit was waiting her face a mask of concern. This was Sarah Jenkins, his chief operating officer. "Marcus," she said, the captain radioed ahead. "I saw the police report. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Sarah. Wet, but fine. What do you want to do?" Marcus looked down the hall toward the terminal where Cassandra was being led away. "Everything," he said. "First, Ms. Reed is to be placed on the permanent lifetime no-fly list for Astrolux and all of our One World and Sky Team partners. I want her banned from every airline we have a code share agreement with. I want her name flagged globally." "Done," Sarah said, already typing on her phone. "Second, I am pressing full charges for assault. I want the Port Authority to have my full cooperation, and I want them to have the witness statements from Ms. Brenda Michaels in 3A and Mr. Chen the person." "Understood." Third, Marcus said. "What was the name she mentioned?" "Her employer." "Harrison and Croft." Sarah supplied. "A major consulting firm." A bell just rang, Marcus said, frowning. Are they a vendor?" Sarah's face went pale. She typed furiously on her phone for a moment, and her eyes widened. "Oh, Marcus, they're not just a vendor. We signed a $7 million contract with them 6 months ago to overhaul our logistics software." Marcus stopped walking. He looked at Sarah, and a slow, cold realization dawned on both of them. She's a partner there. I'm checking." "Yes." "Cassandra Reed. Partner-client relations. She's Marcus. She's our account manager." The sheer staggering irony of it hit them. Cassandra Reed hadn't just assaulted a random passenger. She hadn't just assaulted the CEO of a random airline. She had assaulted her own firm's biggest new client. Sarah, Marcus said, his voice flat. "Cancel the contract." "Effective immediately, Marcus. There are break clauses, penalty." "I don't care," Marcus said. "Find the moral turpitude clause. Find the bringing disrepute clause. I don't care if we have to pay a penalty. I will not have $1 of Astrolux money go to a firm that employs that woman. Call our general counsel. Have a letter of termination drafted and sent to their CEO, Robert Harrison, by morning. Attach the police report and the witness statements." "Yes, sir." Sarah said, no longer arguing. "And one more thing," Marcus said as they started walking again. "Find Chloe, the flight attendant, and David, the purser. I want them both in my office tomorrow morning at 10:00 a.m. They're getting bonuses. And Chloe, I think she's ready for a promotion to the lead trainer program. She handled herself better than most veterans." As they entered the terminal, Marcus finally let out a long, weary breath. The karma wasn't just coming for Cassandra Reed. It was an avalanche. The fallout did not begin with a memo or a lawsuit. It began with a ding. The sound of a smartphone notification multiplied by millions. Before Flight 722 had even fully deplaned its economy cabin, the footage was online. Brenda, the older woman, had sent her video, the one that captured Cassandra's diversity voucher and trash comments, with crystal clear audio to her son, who posted it on X, formerly Twitter, with the caption, "My mom just witnessed this disgusting racist assault on a flight to JFK. The airline handled it, but you won't believe who the man she assaulted was." Simultaneously, the college student in 3C uploaded his clearer, more visually devastating clip to TikTok. It was a 45-second video, perfectly capturing the hurling of the drink, the shocking splash Cassandra's triumphant sneer, and then the bone-chilling revelation. I own this airline. The internet did not just react, it detonated. Within an hour, Cassandra Reed was the #1 trending topic globally. As Astrolux CEO and NAR airline Karen were right behind it, the digital world, a global jury, with an unslakable thirst for justice, had reached its verdict. She was tried and convicted by millions before her hands were even processed for fingerprint ink at the Port Authority precinct. News outlets smelling blood pounced. By the 11 p.m. broadcast, CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC all ran the story, playing the grainy footage on a loop. Commentators in rare agreement condemned her. Her face, frozen in that mask of snarling privilege, was plastered across the Daily Mail, the New York Post, which ran the front page headline, "First Ass Trash," and TMZ. Her LinkedIn profile was found screenshot and circulated. Partner at Harrison and Croft was a fact that would by morning become the firm's death sentence. While this digital firestorm raged, Cassandra herself was in a cold, sterile and fluorescent-lit hell. The holding cell at the Port Authority precinct was a jarring, brutal contrast to the plush business-class pod she had occupied. The smell of stale coffee and disinfectant stung her nostrils. She sat on a hard bench, the adrenaline of her rage replaced by a hollow, nauseating terror. She was allowed one phone call, her fingers trembling so badly she could barely use the keypad dialed. She didn't call a high-powered lawyer first. She called her father. "Dad," she whispered, her voice cracking. I'm in trouble. I'm at the airport. I've been arrested." The silence on the other end was heavy. "Arrested for what, Cassandra? What did you do?" I had a disagreement with another passenger. I threw a drink on him." You what, Cassandra, for God's sake?" "Dad, you don't understand?" She sobbed, the tears coming in hot, ugly waves. He was just call Mr. Corbin, Arthur Corbin from the firm. Call him. Tell him I'm at JFK. Please, just get me out of here." She hung up. Her facade of power completely disintegrated. She was just a woman in a 2,000-lot pantsuit crying in a holding cell. By 3:00 a.m., Arthur Corbin, a shark in a $5,000 suit, arrived. His expression was one of annoyance. "Cassandra, this is a spectacular mess," he grumbled, sitting opposite her in an interrogation room. "Assault on a plane." "What were you thinking?" "Fine, we'll plead it down. Pay a fine, you'll be out by morning." Now, who was this guy? Just some vagrant. No, she whispered, her face ashen. He said his name was Marcus Thorne Corbin, who was looking at his notes, didn't register the name. And a nobody. No, she said, her eyes wide with the horror of the memory. He's the CEO of the Airline of Astrolux. Corbin's pen clattered onto the table. He slowly looked up, his professional annoyance vanishing, replaced by a cold, dreadful understanding. He's the CEO? She repeated, her voice a death rattle. Corbin stared at her. Is there video? She didn't need to answer. He closed his briefcase. Oh, Cassandra, he sighed. This isn't a mess. This is a burial. At 8 a.m., the next morning, the second and far more devastating wave of karma struck. Robert Harrison, the founding CEO of Harrison and Croft, was in his corner office overlooking Central Park. But he wasn't admiring the view. He was in full-blown crisis mode. His phone was a screaming siren of calls from his board, his PR team, and most terrifyingly, his other clients. "Robert, what the hell is this?" one voice had boomed. "Is that your partner on CNN? You have to fix this. Our brand is associated with yours." When his private line buzzed with a call from Astrolux General Counsel, his heart sank into his stomach. "Mr. Harrison," a cold voice said, "please hold for Marcus Thorne and Sarah Jenkins." Robert gripped his desk. Marcus, my God, I just saw the video. I am appalled, mortified. I don't even have words." Marcus's voice cut in calm and cold as a glacier. "I'm sure you don't, Robert. I've just received a copy of your firm's code of conduct from my COO. It has a lot of very impressive words in it. Integrity, respect, professionalism. Apparently they don't apply to your partners. Marcus, she's a rogue element. A total anomaly. Robert stammered, his salesman's voice slick with panic. She's been terminated, of course. Effective an hour ago. Her picture is off the website. We've released a statement condemning, abhorring her actions. Please, this has nothing to do with Harrison and Croft. It has everything to do with Harrison and Croft, Robert, Marcus replied. She wasn't an intern. She was a partner. She was, in fact, our primary account manager for the logistics deal. She was the face of your company. And that face just revealed a culture of profound violent racism. A culture you either cultivated or were too negligent to notice. Either way, it's a non-starter. No, wait, Marcus. We can fix this. Robert was practically begging now, seeing $7 million and the subsequent stock price evaporate. The contract will do it for free. A gesture of goodwill. I'll personally oversee it. We can't. The contract is terminated. Marcus said, his voice final. My legal team is on this line. They've already invoked Clause 12B, breach of conduct and moral turpitude, resulting in public disrepute. We are cancelling. We are suing for initial damages. And we are releasing a public statement severing all ties with your firm. You can expect that letter in 5 minutes. Marcus, please don't do this. It's a $7 million deal. It'll ruin us. She ruined your reputation, Robert, not me. Marcus said, you should have hired better people. He paused, and Robert could almost hear the ice in his veins. And by the way, I'm sending the dry cleaning bill for my polo shirt directly to your office. Have a good day. The line clicked. Robert Harrison stared at the silent phone. He didn't just lose a client. He had been surgically and publicly excised. By noon, HNC's stock had plummeted 28%. Cassandra Reed hadn't just destroyed her own life, she had taken a 30-year-old company down with her. The legal process for Cassandra was a slow, methodical dismantling of her last shred of dignity. Faced with the mountain of digital evidence, the witness statements from the entire cabin, and the testimony of the crew, Arthur Corbin did the only thing he could. You take the plea, he told her in a blunt meeting. They are offering to drop the federal charge of interference with a flight crew, which carries a minimum of 5 years in prison if you plead guilty to assault in the 3rd degree. You will plead guilty, you will cry, and you will beg for mercy. She did. The sentencing hearing was a media circus. Cassandra, dressed in a drab grey suit, her hair flat, her face pale, looked like a ghost of her former self. She read a prepared statement, her voice trembling. I am not the person in that video, she wept. I was under pressure. I am not a racist. I am deeply, profoundly sorry for my actions. The judge, Maria Petrova, watched her, her expression unreadable. When Cassandra finished, the judge took off her glasses. M. Reed. The judge said, her voice quiet, but filling the courtroom. I am not sure if you are sorry for what you did, or if you are simply sorry that your entire life was justifiably ruined for doing it. You did not just throw a drink. You attempted to dehumanize a man based on the color of his skin. You did so with a sense of entitlement and a deep-seated malice that this court finds, frankly, terrifying. You are the living, breathing example of privilege weaponized. The pressure you speak of is what ordinary people feel every day. And they don't commit criminal assaults over it. The gavel came down. 2 years of probation, a $10,000 fine, court-mandated anger management, and most devastatingly 200 hours of community service, which the judge, in a moment of pure, pointed karma, assigned to a sanitation crew at a homeless shelter in the Bronx. Her social ruin was just as complete. The co-op board of her luxury Upper East Side building held an emergency meeting, citing a clause that allowed them to remove any resident who brings public infamy and disrepute upon the building. They voted unanimously to force the sale of her condo. She was given 30 days to vacate. The friends she parted with no longer answered her calls. She was toxic. Her financial ruin was the last stone. after paying Corbyn's exorbitant legal fees and the fine, her savings were gone. Her name was now so infamous that no firm in New York or any other city would touch her. She was unhireable. But while Cassandra's world was collapsing, Marcus was building. 3 weeks after the incident, he stood in an Astrolux hangar at JFK in front of a podium. Behind him were Chloe and David the purser. The hangar was full of journalists. What happened on Flight 722 was ugly. Marcus began his voice broadcast live. It was an act of hate and prejudice, but it will not define this company. It will refine it. It exposed a flaw, not in our airline, but in our society. And Astrolux will not just be a witness to that. We will be part of the cure. He announced the Astrolux Promise Foundation seeded with an initial $50 million of his own money. Its mission to provide flight school scholarships for minority and underprivileged students and to fund travel grants for inner-city youth. We will turn an act of hate into a generation of opportunity, he declared. He then turned and shook the hands of Chloe and David. I also want to honour 2 of my employees who faced this abuse with grace and professionalism. Chloe, who has been promoted, will now be a lead instructor in our new company-wide empathy and de-escalation training program, which David will now oversee. The applause was thunderous. When a reporter asked him to comment on Cassandra Reed's sentencing, Marcus was simple. The courts have done their job. My job is to build a better airline. My focus is on the future. This foundation is that focus. Cassandra, however, had one last desperate move. 6 months later, living in her parents' basement in New Jersey, she filed a $10 million civil suit against Marcus Thorne and Astrolux for defamation, emotional distress, and conspiracy to inflict financial harm. She claimed the video's release was a coordinated PR stunt by Thorne to ruin her. The case was thrown out in summary judgment. The judge's official dismissal was a work of art, a legal document so scathing it went viral itself. This lawsuit is not just frivolous, the judge wrote. It is an insult to the judicial system and a grotesque attempt by the perpetrator to recast herself as the victim. The plaintiff's distress was the direct and foreseeable consequence of her own documented criminal actions. To blame Mr. Thorne for the public's reaction to her own behaviour is a new low of delusion dismissed with prejudice. Cassandra was also ordered to pay Astrolux's legal fees. It was this final act that pushed her into personal bankruptcy. 1 year after the flight, Marcus Thorne stood on a hot tarmac in Arizona at a flight school bearing the Astrolux logo. He was pinning a set of wings onto the uniform of a young woman, a Latina from East LA, one of the first graduates of the Promise program. "You didn't just give me wings, Mr. Thorne," she said, tears in her eyes. "You gave me a future." Marcus smiled. "You earned them. Now go show the world what you can do." On that very same day, in a cold New Jersey drizzle, a woman in a stained orange vest and a knit cap pulled low stood on the shoulder of the Garden State Parkway. She was part of a municipal beautification crew, her job to pick up roadside trash. A passing truck sped through a muddy puddle, splashing her from head to toe in black, icy water. Cassandra Reed didn't even flinch. She just bent down, her face numb and grey, and picked up the next empty bottle. She had, in the end, found her place among the very trash she had accused others of being. The avalanche was over, and she was buried at the bottom. And that's the difference between power and authority. Cassandra Reed had the power of her privilege, her voice, and her anger. But it was hollow, and it shattered the moment it was challenged. Marcus Thorne had authority built from the ground up, earned through hard work, and wielded not as a weapon, but as a shield for his people, and a tool to build a better world. Cassandra's life was destroyed by the very hate she poured on someone else. Marcus's life was defined by how he used the incident to lift others up. That is the ultimate karma. She lost everything while he created a legacy. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you were shocked by Cassandra's entitlement and satisfied by her colossal downfall, let me know in the comments below. What do you think was the single worst moment for her? Don't forget to hit that like button. If you enjoyed this story of justice, and be sure to share this video with someone who loves a good karma story. And of course, please subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so you never miss another story of entitlement getting exactly what it deserves. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next